video, I'm going to show you how to make a 30 bead ball using round sterling silver beads. These are oxidized 5mm sterling silver beads, round. You can also make them using sterling silver bugle beads. I'll show you in a later video. These are 6mm long or so by 1.5mm wide bugle beads. If you're going to use bugles, you have to be sure that the holes are large enough to accommodate multiple passes of thread. You can also use these fabulous sterling silver corrugated beads, which I have oxidized. And still, even though, you know, this is a fairly large structure for a necklace element, it's still fairly lightweight. Very beautiful, very cool. You're going to love how fast and easy it is to make one of these 30 bead balls. May look hard right now, but it's after you practice a few times, you'll be doing it in like 10 minutes, seriously. Okay, or building the structure at any rate. Reinforcing takes longer, okay? So one thing you can do if you're just learning this structure, put 30 beads into a small box, right? Or on a pad. Count out 30 beads. Count them a couple times to make sure that you have exactly 30. Okay, and then step 1 is to take 5 of those beads and stitch them into a circle, a ring, okay? Because this structure, everything begins with a ring of 5 beads. And all we have in this structure is rings of 5, okay? So when in doubt, just check, are you making rings of 5 beads? Or has some odd bead count slipped in, okay? So I have made this ring of 5 beads, and I've reinforced it by going around the beads a few times. These are actually 6mm sterling. I oxidized them myself. You can buy them already oxidized these days, but back when I started, I cleaned the surface and then used a boiling liver of sulfur, okay, to get a nice, really durable dark coat. And I'll show you how to polish these later using a polishing cloth. All right, step 1. We're going to add a second ring of 5 beads. One of the beads is already in place, so we're going to string 4 beads. Now, we're going to go back through the bead we just came out of. I like working with my direction facing left or clockwise, okay? So I always try to hold the piece I'm working on with the thread facing in the same direction. Maybe you know that already. Sometimes beginners don't know that. We're going to insert the needle back through the bead we just came out of. That's this bead. And pull. Check to make sure we really have 2 circles of 5 beads. It might help you to realize that this is actually row 1. Row 1 has only 1 ring of 5 beads in it. Here we're starting row 2. Row 2 has 5 rings of 5 beads in it. Okay. Insert the needle through the next bead in row 1, the first ring of 5 beads we created, and pull. Now we're going to build another ring. 2 of the beads are in place. That's this one and this one. So we're just going to add 5. Excuse me, we're going to add 3. And I think the thread got somewhat twisted here. Something funky went on. All right, so we've got the thread coming out of the left here, and I'm going to go through this bead and this bead. Each of these beads belongs to 1 ring, 1 separate ring of 5 beads. So we're connecting these 2 rings of 5 beads as we add the 3rd ring of 5 beads. Okay, there we go. Now, it's always a good idea to reinforce, okay? You can reinforce as you go or wait until the end. You just want to make sure that your structure stays firm, intact while you're beading it. Now we're going to go through the next bead in the very first ring of 5 beads here, which is row 1, as we said, and pull. Now add 3 beads. Now, if you're ever unsure which bead you should go back through, start bending the thread around to where you could form a ring of 5 beads, okay? And what do you see? The beads don't lie. They tell you that you really need to go through this bead here to create the next ring of 5, and then go through this bead here and pull. Great. Now, rotate the piece a little bit, go through the next bead in the original ring of 5, pull, add 3 beads, and go through this bead here, this bead there, and pull. Now we've already added the first 4 rings in row 2. We have only 1 more ring to add. We can see that 3 of the beads are already in place. That's this one, and this one. So we're only going to add 2 beads. But the problem right now is we're not in position to add those 2 beads. We got to get into position. So if we're going to be working to the left, we're going to go through this bead and this bead and pull. Great, now we're in position. We only have to add 2 beads, as I said, and then we'll be done with rows 1 and 2. And go through this bead on the far right, this bead in the middle, and this bead on the left, and pull. Now, see how a nice domed shape has already started to form? I mean, that's half of our sphere, or maybe even a little more. I would, at this point, I would lightly reinforce if you haven't done so already. Why? Because you still have to build rows 3 and 4, and you want a firm foundation, one that's not going to fall apart. So I'm only going to reinforce once, but I encourage you to consider reinforcing more than that, depending on how large the holes in your beads are. And then we'll go on and build rows 3 and 4. I have watched pearl weavers at Beijing's Hongqiao, which I think means Red Ridge Pearl Market, stitch these structures many years ago, and they go so fast that you almost can't even see their hands working. Why? Because they've made so many in their lifetime. And they're stitching, well, back then, when I was watching them, they were stitching with nylon monofilament, generally without a needle, and they went so fast. Usually they were using pearls, real coral, or real plastic beads. All right, I might just continue a little more here. I feel like one of these rings is really loose. And since I'm getting low on thread, I might as well keep stitching until the thread is used up, at which point I'll add a new thread. I'm just going to make it fast here, cut that thread, add a new thread. I have prepared a new thread. Now, in rows 1 and 2 here, as you see, we have a total of 20 beads. We've added a total of 20 beads. In rows 3 and 4, we're going to add the 10 beads that are left. As we build row 3, we end up building row 4, okay? Laura Shea was the first one to point this out in my book, The Art of Beadwork, many years ago. Really, it's Laura who's the expert in these techniques. Although I was finding them in China, it was Laura, unbeknownst to me, who also living in Evanston, like a mile away from me, was exploring the potential of these beaded structures. As I mentioned in one of the shorter videos on the history of the structure, I'm inserting a new thread. I'm not adding a knot. I'm just stitching through a number of beads until I feel like this new thread is well anchored. It's not going to fall apart. I'll go a little more. And then I'm going to cut the tail. In fact, I'm going to cut the tail right now. Okay, now I want you to notice something, if you would, okay? At this point, I want you to notice that the outer perimeter of row 2 contains 5 pairs of beads. Here's 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair, 4 pair, 5 pair. One concept that you might want to learn going forward if you plan to make more of these structures, any bead polyhedra or polyhedron, is the concept of splitting a pair. What does splitting a pair mean? It means one of two things. Either you're going to go up through one of the beads in the pair, but not the other, or you're going to go down through one of the beads in the pair. That's what I call splitting a pair. You are also going to be creating pairs. How? You're going to be connecting far apart beads, 2 beads that are far apart, like these 2 right here, they're far apart. You are going to be turning them into pairs. So splitting pairs and creating pairs, all right? If you can understand these concepts, it'll make your life so much easier going forward in this genre of beaded structure. Okay, so I'm just stitching around, stitching around. Step 1 is to go through the right-hand bead in any pair. Doesn't matter which pair, just go through that bead and pull. Now, 2 of the beads for the next ring of 5 are in place. That's this one and this one. So we're just going to add 3 beads. 1, 2, 3. Great. And we're going to go through, we're now going to create a pair, so to speak, by joining this bead with this bead. So let's go through this bead. And again, play this game. Ask the beads. You're not sure what to do? Bend the thread. Play with it. See which bead you could go through to create a ring of 5. Well, that's this bead here. Okay, so I want to teach you principles that will serve you well in years going forward, not just right now. Okay, pull, and see how it's bending upward. It's becoming more three-dimensional, more like a sphere. Okay, at this point I'm going to hold it like this, kind of draped over my finger, and I'm still going to work to the left, go through this bead and this bead. So we're splitting that pair. All right, now for the next ring, 3 beads are in place. 1, 2, 3. So we just have to add 2. Go through this bead, this bead, and this bead, and pull. Great, now 2 rings are already in place in row 3. And remember that as we create row 3, we're also creating row 4. Now navigating to the left, 2 beads, that's this bead, and this bead, and pull. Add 2 beads, we're creating ring 3 right now. Insert the needle. Let me see. Nope, wrong way. It is easy to get lost, but just be patient. You'll be able to do this really quickly soon. Go through this bead, and this bead. And pull. Great. Now we have to add ring 4. Go through this bead and this bead and pull. Now at this point, there are only 3 beads left in the box. That tells us that all we have to do is make ring 4 and ring 5. That's all we have to do. That's all that's left. So let's string these 2 beads. Go through this bead this bead and this bead and pull. Now I'd like you to observe a pattern, okay? That whenever you see this pattern with this structure, this 30 bead sphere that, or 30 bead ball that is a dodecahedron, you see one pair, one close knit pair over here, and one close pair over here. And you see two far apart pairs, one here and one here. What does that tell you? It tells you that with respect to this structure, only one bead is left to be added. Where is it going to go? It's going to split two pairs. It's going to go right in the middle of two pairs. Now, right now, we are not in position to do that. We have to navigate over to where we can do that. Well, here we are right here. We're coming up through one of the beads in a pair, a close pair, and then we're going to add this bead here. And then where is the pair we're going to split? It's right here. So we're going to go down through that bead there. And then all we have to do is stitch around to close up some of the rings that are not yet closed, right? Because we're out of beads. We used all 30. And we know that we're done adding beads. See, we got some very loose rings here that have to be tightened even before we start reinforcing. All right. Now this last open ring here, we could call this row 4. Row 4 only has one ring of 5 beads in it. It's a mirror image of row 1, which also has only one ring of 5 beads in it. All right, I think all the beads and all the rings are stitched together at least once, maybe twice. And now from here on out, your only job is to keep reinforcing, okay? That's all you have to do. I prefer to have, because I've been in business for so many years and I sell, you know, my jewelry designs to customers, and I want the pieces to last, and so do the customers. I tend to stitch many, many, many times until I have a really firm structure. That's what I like. But you can just stitch until you feel your structure is sturdy enough. Depends what you're going to do with it, of course, too, and how long you want it to last. Okay, so that's it for this video. Congratulations, you made your first sterling silver bead ball. Let me show you briefly how to polish these this oxidized sterling beads. I start out with them like this, and then I make them brighter by polishing. I get one of these yellow polishing cloths, not a cheap one. Cheap ones don't work that well. And see how much brighter already. You have to push really hard. I am really exerting pressure with my right hand. If you don't do that, it's not going to be very effective. One note of caution, your hands will start getting black. Your fingers will get black unless you wear rubber gloves. For now, some of the black is coming off on the cloth, but it will also come off on your hands. So think about wearing a plastic glove, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for coming by. Please subscribe.